resident lecturer. He did a surgery, a minor uh, wisdom tooth removal or extraction last week, and he wasn't able to speak in the week. We thought he would have been able to come to class today, but when I spoke to him last night, he was saying that while he's able to speak, um, he's still feeling some pain in his jaw. So, it would be difficult for him to teach today. Um, but as I said last week, learning goes on. And so right now we just want to, we'll do with what we have. I did give you guys a video last week for you guys to go through, and also an assignment was given for you guys to do as well in preparation for today, where you would present and we will just go through your presentation to see what you've done and see how we can improve. So, did anyone do it aside from our friend Taisha, who's joining us for the first time? But Aliyah and Jason, were you able to do the assignment?
I did something else.
Yeah, no
Simple.
problem, no problem. As long as you do something. If you never do nothing, you don't have problems. But as long as you do something. So let me allow you to first before I do that, let's just go through the agenda for today. So basically, if you see me looking up, guys, I'm actually using my laptop and a monitor as well. So some of the information that I was speaking on is on the monitor. If you see me looking up, I'm actually looking on the monitor to kind of give me some guidance. But in terms of the agenda for today, we'll be going through, of course, the presentations for those who have done it. I actually did it as well. So I'll show you what I did, and I'll show you some other stuff that I've been working on as well. And we can just have a conversation. Today is about conversations, right? For the past couple of Saturdays, we've been just teaching, and you guys have been providing responses, but we weren't really interacting to the level that I would have wanted, I would have liked. So today is really just having this discussion, reviewing a lot of the stuff that we did, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and also kind of outlining to you guys based on the syllabus that I had shared with you guys, how we're going to be moving forward. And hopefully next week, our teacher will be here to continue from that. But yeah, so for the agenda today, it's gonna be the assignment, presentations, and we'll just go through the code. Second thing is that we will discuss any of the code bugs that you guys have been experiencing, not only for the assignment that I gave last week, but also prior to that, just in your experience, anything that you've been having some issues with, we can go through them. We can, try to debug it. If I cannot, then we will note it, and then throughout the week, I'll be posting in the group once I find the answers, and we can have that discussion in the WhatsApp group because I really want you guys to interact with us in the WhatsApp group. I know persons are busy and people have lives outside, and I hear that, but I would still love for that interaction to be there, the engagement to be there. And number three, we will do some code reviews. So one of the big things that we want to actually do here at Nyla is to ensure that you not only know how to code, but also know how to provide quality code. Because the thing is that as a software engineer, you're not coding for yourself. Think of it in terms of teams. So, and that is really one of the reasons you have coding standards, because as you go out there in the working world, you always be working with other people. You remember that something is flying over. Right, so you always be coding with other people. And what is critical is that the way you structure your code and the quality of your code, it needs to be readable for persons to be able to see, okay, then this is what he's doing or she's doing. And that's why you have something like comments where you can guide the person so they can go into the code and not have to call you too many times or not have to have like some severe issues with understanding how you're coding. So the code review is essential because that assesses the quality of the way you code. But those are the three objectives that we have for today. Presentation, going through some debugging if necessary, and also assessing the quality of the code. And if you guys have any questions, any concern, just let me know. We're just having a conversation. All right. So JC, you want kick it up, and let me make you allow you to share.
Jordan, but let's put
Oh,
that name.
Jordan. Well, yeah, I'm just seeing the Jason coding. That's why I just call it that. I know it's Jordan, man. All right. So, all right. So I think you're able to share now, Jordan. So you want to kick it up?
You share screen. I don't know.
You don't know how to share screen, or you can.
And oh, well, I see.
Yeah. Taisha is still with us.
All right.
Ali is still with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here as well, but I'm kind of sick. I don't want to say that and raise any red flags. But
you didn't do anything.
I know I've been ill, but I thought I can lie down in the bed and still join class.
Oh, you're ill now.
Yeah,
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Well, this indicates how committed you are to the process. I really respect that. All right, no problem.
You can see my screen?
Yes, I can. Can everyone else see screen?
yes.
Okay.
So
All right.
basically, this is all I did.
Mm-hmm.
You ask for the name, email, and password, and have it
Mm-hmm.
show in the same web app. So
Mm-hmm.
did that right? That type in.
Mm-hmm.
Press me to show data, and
Right,
there it
and it
is.
comes up.
And-
Okay,
Yeah.
and if you should enter
Show
something
the code
else, so allow this to stick. Don't reload. Just enter something else. Let me see what happens.
and run the function.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it just
Great.
changed it there. Oh, okay. All right, that's good. So let me see the code. So were you able to watch the video, Jason?
No, I did not. I did not
Okay.
watch the video. So yeah, that's basically the form.
Yeah, sure. Let me see the code. Their code.
And see, you're not seeing it?
No, I'm not. I think you shared your browser.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, share difference.
So you have to share the whole screen so I can
I
see
have to
it.
click new share.
Right. New share, but share your whole screen. So when you're transitioning between the applications, I can see what you're using.
Oh,
Mm.
oh. Um, let me see. I can minimize this.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So remember just to
That
share.
can work.
Just remember just to share your all of your screen.
Pardon?
Now I'm saying remember to share all of your screen. So no matter
Yeah,
if you.
I don't know.
Hmm?
Is it not being shared? I
Yeah,
have the.
I'm still seeing your browser.
So you said you wanted to see the browser as well. What you want? You just want to see the code alone?
Right. So what I'm saying is that if you share all of the screen, then no matter which application you're using, I'll be able to see it.
Oh,
Yeah.
just share all.
What are you on your laptop?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. All right. So when you click share, do you see screen as an option there?
yeah,
Right. So select that and then reshare and then bring up your code. You're using VS, right? VS code.
yeah.
Yeah. Let's bring it up.
I did.
Ah, there you go.
Okay.
All right, so walk me through the. I really just want to see the JavaScript because I think it will. Just walk me through the process. So start with the JavaScript. Um, Let me see how it works.
So you can see this, right? You can see the
Yeah,
mouse move. Okay.
I can see it.
So I just created a function called my data,
Mm-hmm.
and basically I got the value from the form ID
Mm-hmm.
and save it to the name, save it to a variable called name. So for the name, well, I got the name, the value from the ID from the form name. For
Mm-hmm.
the email, I got the email, the value from the input field named email, and,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and the same thing with the password. I have
Right.
saved it to
So
the.
you're using, so basically, all right. So the code, because I'm just trying to provide some clarity for other persons who are online as well. Um, so what you're seeing, guys, is essentially um, the starting or the beginnings of adding functionality to your HTML and CSS interface, right? So in the past couple of weeks, we've been communicating to you guys how to develop HTML code, how to develop CSS code, and we said to you that we would be transitioning into actually adding behavior to the code, which is done by using JavaScript. What Jordan did, because I'm seeing the Jason in your Zoom meeting, Jordan. What Jordan did was to actually say, all right, cool. I want to I know that there's an input field on HTML on my web page. I know that there's a email field, and I know that there's a password field. So we have that, and that was built using HTML and CSS. Could you just go on the HTML view and just scroll up? Let me say HTML second. Right. So here, where you see the form tag, if you guys are seeing this, you have something a name beneath the body tag. You'll see form, right? So you see the form opening tag at the top and the form closing tag at the bottom. Um, and just to confirm, you guys know what the opening form tag and the closing form tag is, right? Alia, Taisha, you following? You guys hearing me?
Yeah, I'm following.
Okay, cool. All right, right. So below that, you'll see below the opening form tag, you'll see what is your name, right? And you can see that it's actually at. If you look at the web page beside the code, you'll see what is your name. Beneath that, you'll see the input tag, and after the input tag, which is well, input is the opening tag. It's you don't have a closing. You don't have to put a closing tag for input. But if you look at the input tab, beside that, you'll see type equal text and ID equal name. The ID equal name attribute is which is what you call it. So it's an attribute. ID is the property, name is the value, right? For the ID attribute, you'll see that they attach a name value to it. That's what Jordan did. Now that name value is what Jordan will use in JavaScript to ensure that when someone enters their name, they'll be able to, or the code will be able to pick up the name and spit it out back. And I'm sure I'll show you how it works. But you'll see that, and so a lot of these things are repetitive. So you see the input opening tag, the input, that's what name, input opening tag, that's what email, input opening tag for password, and then you have another thing input element, but this time the type is button, and I'll speak more to that. But what is critical is that for each of these elements, Jordan attached an ID to it, and that is critical when talking about JavaScript and being able to add behavior to the code and to ensure that everything is working properly. Now, for the last input element, you realize that he placed the type attribute. The value of that property is button. And essentially, what that allows Jordan to do is actually create a button on his web page. There are various. So he could have used a button element as well, but in this case, the instruction is that you use a type input element and you place the button value in the type property. You guys following? Um, I'm going to check up every time I'm talking in my conversation to ensure that you guys are following me. And we have the value attribute as well that says press me to show data. So if you look at the web page that Jordan has created, you realize that the same thing that he placed in the value property is showing up on the web page. And then what he also did was to use an on-click method, and that this is from JavaScript. Uh, and he set that method to my data. He created a my data function. Now that on-click my data relationship is what will allow him to add functionality to the application itself, right? So if you just scroll down, Jordan, to the script element.
Excuse me. You can hear me?
Sure.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yeah. You're talking about the button element and
Mm-hmm.
how you change or input what you want into the button. Same value attribute.
No, it would be the same value attribute. Because remember, for the button element, you could the button element you could so you have the button open and closing
Oh, you just
bracket.
write it in there.
Write it in there, but within the you have some attributes. So essentially, you could put the same on click attribute within the button, and then once it's selected, once you create the function and you get the various IDs, you'll be able to add that function. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Don't worry. Um, right. So in the script element now, right, you will see that Jordan created the my data function. So if you look at his code in the input element at the top, scroll up a little bit more, Jordan. So they can see both the input element and the script element, right? So in the last input element, you'll see the onclick equal my data function, right? And every time you add a parentheses, open and closing parentheses to the to a particular identifier, and I'm going to explain to you what an identifier is. You're creating a function. So how do you create a function? You write the name of the function, and you put opening and closing brackets. Again, I'm going to speak more to that, but I'm just walking through Jordan's code just to kind of give you an idea of his thought process and how you should be thinking as well. So within the script element, you see function, and every time you want to create a function, you don't have to put the word function, and I'm going to show you how to do it using shorthand. But for in terms of principle, you use a function, the word function, and then you name the function, which is my data. You put a closing, open and closing bracket, and then you open the function. As you can see here, what I'm there. What's the there's a word for that I cannot remember now.
Great.
But you have the open and closing bracket, and then you have curly braces, right? Open the function with a curly brace. Could you just highlight the curly brace, Jordan, so they can see?
Right.
Right. So you open the curly brace, and then now you begin to uh, declare your variables and assign values to your variable, right? So the first value that you want, so say you set up your form, you now want to capture user input essentially. So the first value that you want is the name value. Remember, going back to the input, the very first input element that contains the ID name, how would I get that value, right? So if someone puts their name, so Jordan puts HJHJH in that input field. Okay, so how would our JavaScript function, my data JavaScript function get it? Well, this is how you do it. First, you declare the variable. To declare a variable, you use the keyword var. You could use let as well, or const, C-O-N-S-T, but we can speak more to that later. So he used var name equal document that get element by ID, open bracket. He put in the word name in quotations, close bracket, that value. So what this notation does essentially is that it takes whatever value you entered into the name field, right, and stores it in the name variable. Following, guys? So it takes whatever value any user puts into the name field, and it stores that value into the name variable, right? It does the same thing for email, and it does the same thing for password. So what Jordan is essentially doing is capturing all of the values that he that the user would be inputting. Now, once that is done, what he needs to do now is to be able to show it below the form. Scroll up a little bit, Jordan. No, I'm sorry, scroll down, sorry, so I can see the rest of the code. So what he did was, okay, no. So now that I have all of the values, I have the name value, I have the email value, and I have the password value, but I need to show it. Okay, how do I do that? Well, again, using some notation, he wrote document that get and I explain what these words mean, or what they call identifiers. I'll explain what they mean, but I'm just walking through the code. So he said, okay, then document that get element by ID, open bracket, put show in quotations, close bracket, dot HTML. That inner HTML equal name in quotation plus the variable name plus a break element plus email in quotation plus email variable plus a break element plus password in quotation plus password variable, right? And then uh, close braces. Now, you have to always close the braces when you're close the braces when you're creating a function, right? If you don't, then you get an error. So in terms of code structure, it is necessary for you to, when you're creating a function, you open the braces and you close it. And I'm going to show you, when I share mine, so I'm going to show you or walk you through how that is done properly. Um, so now we have a function, right? Now we have a function, and what we want the function to do is to take all of the values that the user placed in each field and spit it out or show it on the web page. So what the document that get element by ID uh, does, and the word in quotation that says show is actually, you'll see that it's attached to a paragraph element. So the ID of the paragraph element is show. So what this will do is that when Jordan presses the button and calls the myData function, what it will do is that it will take all of the values from each field, name, email, and password, and it will show it in the paragraph element. How will it show it? What it will do is that it will take the document that the element get element by ID with the show value in the braces. What it will do is that it will take all of the values and put it or spit it out in the paragraph element. How does it do that? That .html method or that HTML property will that allows it or that allows the code to essentially represent all of the values that the user has inputted into the paragraph element. So the dot element, the document dot get element by ID with the show ID value knows that, okay, I'm getting all of these values. Where should I put it? I should put it in the paragraph element for all to see. Right? Do you guys have any questions before I move on? Any questions you guys are following? Talk to me, guys. I don't want to feel alone. Anybody? Somebody? Nobody? You guys are gone?
Um, after,
Aliyah? Taisha? Or is that they can't unmute?
No, I don't have any questions on you.
Okay. Aliyah? You good? Mm,
I'm good over here. No questions.
okay. So you guys are clear, right? So you guys are following, like, am I communicating clearly? I think that is what I want to ask.
Actually, I think I do have a question.
Okay.
Um,
Finally. Yeah, what's up?
um, for the uh, for the
Mm-hmm.
BR
Right.
So those, what is that? What's that one? Brackets. What does it stand
Oh,
for?
it's supposed to be break.
Break.
Right. So,
What does that
Jordan, if you
do?
want, you could explain that part.
Pardon?
I'm saying you could, because it's your code, so just explain
Oh,
the
for all right. So break is used in
Mhm.
HTML and here. So what this break does is just create a new line or breaks the so if I type something here, I type something here, this break would say, all right, this line is finished. Now move on to the next line. That's all it is.
Okay.
And
Right.
so
Right.
even when you see it in the JavaScript code, you just put it in quotations to show that
Hmm.
it's HTML, but it's the same thing.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Not hearing you.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's essentially how Jason's code works, right? He accepts all the values, every value that the user inputs in each field. The my data function takes all of those values and then represents it in the paragraph element. So how it does that, it says, okay, I'm going to, for the document that get element by ID with the show ID attribute or the show value in the curly braces or in the brackets, sorry, it takes those, it I'm sorry, the document that get element by ID with the show value, that inner HTML. The inner HTML property is a property of the, let's call it the document object. And I'm going to walk you guys through these things. But I'm just giving you an idea of how the function works. So for that inner HTML, it takes all of those values that Jason has stored. But how he's doing it is that he wants the name, the name in quotation, he wants that to be represented as well. So he does that. What in that case, what he's doing is appending a string to a variable for each of the values. So for the name variable, he appends a name string to it. For the email variable, he appends an email string to it. So the name in quotation plus the name variable, that is essentially what he's doing. And then he breaks it. So he also appends a break string. In this case, it's represented as a string, but what it allows him to do is create a new line, as he said, for the email um, for the email value. So it's break plus the email string plus the email variable plus another break, which creates a new line, which allows him to append the password string to the password variable. And so when he enters the values, so let's go back to your web page, Jason.
Pardon?
Right. So I just want to see because I wanted to just reload and then enter the values again.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when he does that, right, what happens is that, and then just bring up back the VS code, right? So the information that you see appears when he presses the button or clicks on the button. The document that get element by ID with the show value or the show right the show value in it, that inner HTML, that part, that code, those three lines of code allow him to represent the data on the screen itself. So could you just highlight from line 28 to line 30, Jason or Jordan, which one? Any one of them. Right.
and
That those three lines of code allows him to represent the data on the web page. Right. But that is essentially how it works in terms of how he has used JavaScript to add behavior to his to his application, which is basically a simple forms that takes data and shows it on the web page. Do you have any questions, Jordan, or you good?
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything else to it?
I have two questions.
Sure.
When you're asking about, when I try to enter this, you're asking if I can put in data without reloading it. Remember at the
Oh,
beginning.
you're asking what?
Oh, sorry. Basically, we're talking about me putting in data without reloading it. I was basically asking if it's preferred that I not be able to add to change the data before unless I reload the page. If you get what I'm saying.
Oh, so you want? Oh, so all right. So is the question? Is the question?
Like
Mm-hmm.
like is it fixed where in order for me to change the data again, like is it preferred? So in order for me to change the data, I have to reload, get the um data fields, and then put in the data again. I just want to know what is correct.
Oh, okay, okay. I get what you're trying to say. All right. So it's not really preferred to say the least, because you could just change the things that what your code does right now, is that if you should change the name in the name field on your web page, right, and press the button again, it will change you'll see a different name show up below it. So right now, if you should go back to your web page and just clear the name field and writing another name, you realize that it's strange, right? You could also reload the page, have a clear, a blank, let's say, blank fields. What you want, what you could do. So it's not, because you're just beginning, you really don't have to think about it like that. What I'm going to show you how to do is actually to ensure that when you press the button and it represents the data below it, it automatically clears the fields. All right? Following?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me just.
I have one more question though.
Sure, no problem.
Maybe you can
You're,
ask.
you're low, Jason. So if you could just,
Oh, sorry. You can hear me better now.
yeah, just
All right.
stay like that.
You're talking about the function where I don't have to have the function. Cause when I was doing it, I
Mhm.
left off the function and it didn't work, and then I had to fix it.
Right. So there's also what you call arrow functions that allow you to basically shorten the amount of, say, words you have to use to actually create a function. I'm going to show you how that is done. But um, you guys still hearing me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you have something called arrow functions that allow you to basically reduce the amount of code you have to use to to create a function. So again, if you were able to watch the video that I sent, you would the guy Traversy Media would show you how to do it. But I'm gonna show you how to do it now. That's what I was referring to essentially. I'm
Okay.
gonna show you how to do it. Cool.
Hmm.
All right. Give me 1 second, guys. I want to check something. Let's maybe use. Are you guys hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Hi, Joel. How are you? You just joined us. Joel Mackenzie has joined us, guys. I'm just saying hi to Joel. Joel, are you hearing me? Joel? I'm sure if Joel is able to unmute. Joel, if you're hearing me, just type in the chat if you're hearing me. All right. So yeah, so I really appreciate you actually doing something, Jordan. Um, it starts from there. You actually doing something small daily until it accumulates and you're able to really do a lot of great things with the code. what I am going to do now is that I'm going to share my screen and show you guys what I actually did um, for my assignment. So
Stop share.
yeah, yeah. No. Um, let me stop the sharing this. All right. So screen two. All right. Are you guys seeing my screen? Just confirm if you're seeing my screen, guys.
Yes, I'm seeing it.
All right.
Seeing it.
All right. Cool. All right. So give me a second. Let me just bring this up for live. All right. So I did some stuff, right? The first thing that I did was actually this. So this essentially what this small app or what they call applet does. And I'm looking. Oh,
Hello?
yeah, you guys hearing me?
Yeah.
Joel, you hear me?
Yeah, I was trying to type, but it says chat is disabled.
Oh, all right, hold on. Let me see what's up. Oh, okay. All right, so it's now enabled, Joel. Thank you for joining us. We're not going to be doing much teaching per se today in terms of someone just talking about some stuff or communicating some stuff. What we're going to be doing is just interacting. I'm not sure if you were able to complete the assignment that I placed in the group. Were you able to complete the assignment, Joel? Let me see. They say something in the chat. All right. Oh, okay. All right, no problem. Were you able to watch the video at all? Just type in the chat if you were able to watch the video or watch anything. Right, help me out here. Okay. Well, so it's not Java, it's just JavaScript, just a correction. So we're not teaching Java. Java is different from JavaScript. So these are different. So Java is actually a backend application that allows you to build, like, for example, a lot of the applications that are in yeah, a lot of the applications, but I'm just providing clarity for the other persons. Um, a lot of the applications that are in like banks, they're built on Java, which is basically a heavy duty application. It's really, really old, right? One of the first set of a heavy duty programming language, sorry, is really one of the first set of programming languages that were built on top of some more grandfather programming languages. But like probably some of the systems that you guys use to, or that NCB uses, the ATM, um, all of the ATMs across Jamaica, they probably run on Java as well as a low-level application. JavaScript, however, is a web-based low-level programming language. Sorry, JavaScript, however, is a web-based programming language that allows you guys to add functionality to your web to your website or your web application. Of course, and Java can do some backend, JavaScript can do some backend stuff. That's why you have Node.js, but there's a difference. But yeah, so what we're doing today, Joel, is just those who did the presentation, including myself, we're just going through the code, having the conversation. If you have any questions, you can ask me. But we're not going to be doing much teaching today. I just want to interact with you guys because I realize that you guys don't interact much in the chat. I know you guys are busy, but we just want to increase the interaction to ensure that you guys are following properly, and we're not just throwing stuff at you that in a sense now on the head and then answer them. So I'm about to show everyone in the call or in the meeting what I did and just walk through my own process. All right, so the first thing that I did, and I'm looking up, guys, because I'm looking at my monitor. So the first thing that I did was I created a form or created a button, an app that allows me to create multiple forms. So when I click on it, it just shows a form. shows a form, shows, so now we have three forms, right? And I'm going to show you how this is done in terms of the, hold on, give me 1 second, guys. I don't know why that just, okay. All right, there we go, right. So in terms of the design of it, I actually just use Bootstrap. Are you guys familiar with Bootstrap? Just type in the chat if you're familiar with Bootstrap. Or you can use your mic as well. Okay. Alia, are you familiar with Bootstrap? Taisha? Oh, you're not familiar with Bootstrap? Okay, cool. Taisha, we know your thing already, so we talk about that after. um, but so Bootstrap is essentially a framework. Let me just go. That's for Alia. All right, so Bootstrap is essentially uh, a CSS. I don't want to even call it a CSS framework. But let's call it a framework for now. So Bootstrap is a framework that really allows you to that abstract away. Okay, Joel. So I'm going to show you some of the basics in terms of how to use it. Um, but Bootstrap is essentially a framework that allows engineers, programmers to abstract away a lot of the complexity of using HTML and CSS code. So um, in the past, if you wanted to do some stuff with CSS, like making your application mobile responsive or just adjusting based on the size of the device that is being used, changing some colors, padding, you have to do a lot of things. You have to write a lot of code to for that to be done, and it took a lot of time. One thing you'll find with a lot of engineers is that they're lazy, so they don't want to write too much code to do stuff. And so what Bootstrap allows you to do as an engineer is that it allows you to essentially simplify a lot of stuff. So you get like a package of stuff that allows you to accomplish a particular goal in less time. So if you want to make a site mobile responsive without having to do a lot of stuff like using macros and stuff like that, you can use Bootstrap, right? Um, and it is essentially, it was, I think it started out with some Twitter guys, um, and now it's actually a whole community of persons who are adding stuff to it. So let me just go to home. Let's click on get started. So you'll see that, right, so it's the world most popular framework for building mobile responsive um, sites, right? Uh, for the CSS part of it, so this is what, so this is the starter template that they gave us, right? Now, for you to use Bootstrap, all you have to do is just copy and paste all of this in your HTML file. And that is essentially what I did. So if you look at what is here, let me just come over here. All right, so if you look at what is here and what is over here, you see that, okay then, so we have Bootstrap CSS, which allows me to get access to all the functionalities, CSS functionalities that Bootstrap has. I copied and paste this link right here, and now this is it, all right? For JavaScript, because it allows you to also have JavaScript functionality, or when you're doing your JavaScript stuff, I essentially copied and paste this here and put it here. So if you want to get access to a lot of the CSS, i.e. design stuff that Bootstrap has, and also JavaScript functionality as well, all you'd have to do is just copy. As you can add the copy button here, so let me just create a new file, paste it, right? Or let me save it. Bootstrap example .html. Right, so there we go. So now I have starter code, or what they call boilerplate code, that allows me to get access to a lot of the Bootstrap functionality. And I know that Shay or Mr. Gordon, our teacher, spoke to as engineers, some of the times you don't have to necessarily build things from scratch. This is an example where you don't have to necessarily build things from scratch. But what is important is that you understand how it works. So we understand doc type at HTML, the doc type HTML. We understand that this is an element, or this is an opening tag, this is an attribute. We understand that this is the header tag, and within the header tag, we have the meta tag, we have the link tag, which gives us access to Bootstrap CSS. We understand that this is the title tag, and within the title tag, we understand that this is the HTML content, right? So while it is good that we're able to just copy and paste because it reduces the time that you use to write code, what is fundamental, for me, what is more fundamental, and I think this is something that we champion at Nyla, is that you understand fundamental stuff, right? It is painful, yes, to start from scratch. It is time consuming, yes, but what you get long term is that even though you're using various frameworks and you're copying and pasting, you understand what you're copying and pasting. There are a lot of engineers out there who cannot use or cannot build anything using vanilla JavaScript or pure JavaScript. Oh, you were saying something. I saw it. I added it to my project, but I don't know where to. Oh, Jordan is find an individual like functionality if I want a header layout and more. I found the mention too, but I don't know what else to continue. What you're doing? Yeah, this is okay. Okay, this Jordan. I will address it later. Right. So as I was saying, the a principle that we champion at Naida is that you understand the fundamentals, right? You understand the fundamentals. As I've said, it is more painful, but I can guarantee that long term you'll be better for it. And we want to create quality software engineers. We don't want to just create people who just know if you use a framework. If you just know if you use a framework user, you're not an engineer. And there's a difference. I know a lot of engineers who can only use a particular JavaScript framework like Angular, React, or Vue, and they can't even use it properly. Why? Because they don't understand JavaScript, because they skip that part and just go straight to using Vue, copying and pasting, and watching some YouTube videos. Nothing is wrong with YouTube videos or copying and pasting, but you need to understand JavaScript. Um, but yes, a copy and paste, right? And you get some functionalities from Bootstrap, or you have access to these functionalities from Bootstrap, right? So this is my form. Let me just minimize this. So this is my form, right? Now, when I press this button, this appears. The reason this appears is that I've added some JavaScript functionality as well. Now, in my form, I have access to Bootstrap and all of the CSS goodies, right? I also created a div tag, couple div tags. So we have the top level div tag with the ID of container. We have the sub level, which is a div tag with a class of center. And then we have a button. And I'm going to show you, this is what we were speaking to earlier, Jordan, about using the button tag and adding the functionality. So using the button tag instead of using the button element instead of the input element, right? So in my button element, I have an idea of button create form. And this probably is not the best way to name my ID. What you want to do is preferably use a verb. So it should be create button form or create form button or something like that. I have my type, which is button. I have my class, which is btn dash outline dot primary. And this is coming from Bootstrap. So what Bootstrap allows you to do, or what they've done, is that they've given you certain guides, certain documentation that allows you to basically know how to create certain elements on your web page. So for the button tag, for the button element, right? I need to add a class of btn dot outline dash primary in order for me to have access to some of the CSS design elements of Bootstrap. So if I should, let me go on the web page and show you. So if I should select layouts, or let's select components, and let's select button. So how Bootstrap works is that it provides you, oh no. It provides you with certain components of a web page that have been pre-designed for you. And all you have to do is attach certain attributes to your elements within your application or within your HTML document in order to essentially automatically get access to certain CSS design elements, right? So for the button element, I want my button to look like this. Nice. And when I hover over it, it becomes blue, right? Okay, how do I do that using Bootstrap? Well, there is a section called outline buttons, and you see all of these buttons here. And this is the one that I use. I literally just copy and paste this. Now, in order for me to do that, I have to set my class, I have to set my type property to button, and then set my class property to the value of btn dot dash outline dash primary, and then I can rename it to anything I wanted to rename it to. So if I copy this, right, and just put it here, um, let me just rename this to Nyla button. I have to plug Nyla as usual, and let me just add a break element to this. Add a break element. And then save. Once I save that, and I go back here, now I see, oh, the break element is not working. Okay, there you go. Right? So now the button is there, and the button is pre-designed for me. Right? So no, I don't have to worry about making this button look attractive because it's already made attractive by me just adding this line of code and renaming it. You understand? So that is one example of how Bootstrap works. But in order for that to happen, I have to ensure that I have placed this, this line of code in it to get access to it, and the lines of code at the bottom here. And it's critical. So what is important is that you place the code at a certain areas within your documents, right? Some persons would just prefer to copy everything from the getting started view. Copy the template here. What I do is that I just copy the lines of code that I know are relevant to what I want to do. Following? You guys following, right? Yeah, you guys have to let me know what's up. Either unmute or type in the
Yeah,
chat.
I understand.
Okay, okay.
But in reference to the, because I did the whole thing instead of the relevant ones, but I would still need to change it to button like primary or whatever to get access from it.
Okay, so is it working? All right, you know what? All right, when I'm finished with this, I wanted to just bring up back your view and let's work through how to structure it. All right, Jordan?
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, so that is an example. So let me just remove this. So now I have a nice looking button. And I'm also, guys, I'm going to show you because what this is doing, if I should change this, I want you guys to look at this example. If I should change, let's say I just put some random stuff and I save it, you realize that it automatically reloads, right? Are you seeing that? I'm pointing like you guys are here, but it automatically reloads, and that's actually a live reloader that I've added to my VS Code. I'm going to show you how to do that as well. But yeah, so now you don't have to reload your page every time you do something. It just automatically reloads it. So if I should remove this now, where did I put that? Okay. So if I should just remove this now, remove this and save. Now it's my form is good now, right? So I have a button that looks nice, right? But I also want what I want to do is that when I click the button, I want it to create a whole form for me, right? Well, how do I do that? Well, this is where JavaScript comes in. The first thing I do, however, and I'm going to get to the JavaScript file, but the first thing I do is that I need somewhere to put my form. So when I click the button and JavaScript generates the form, I need some way to represent the form. Well, how do I do this? First, I create a div tag again, a second div tag with a class of container. And this is specific to me. You don't have to use certain tags to, or certain HTML elements, sorry, to structure your HTML document. I just do it like this because it's easier for me to understand what I'm working with. So as a developer, at certain times, in terms of how you structure your code, it's specific to you. But you have to balance that with working with other persons. So for me, I want somewhere to put the form, right? When I select the button or click the button. Okay, I need to know where to put it. How do I know where to put it? Well, first I use a div element because divs are used just to divide out. You know that you have various sections in your HTML document and it's easier to understand, right? I also put a class of container to that because again, going back to Bootstrap, Bootstrap allows me to structure my code in such a way easily so that it looks very, very nice. So if I go to Bootstrap right now and I go to, let me put like, um, let me go to, and go back to getting started. It's like layout. All right, let me go to layout, right? So if I go to layout, I see grid, I see overview, and I see grid. And what Bootstrap allows you to do is section or create various grid layouts for your code. Now, the container class, essentially, I think it would be better if I just show you how it works. So if I create div, and then I create class equal container, um, and then I create, say I have an input equal text class, sorry, class, what's the name of the input again? The form control, I think so, as a value, form control, and the series. Okay, so you realize that once I do that and my input field appears, it looks like this. What the class of container does automatically for my input field is that it not only creates it, but it adds the appropriate margins and padding to make it look attractive. That's what container does. But if I add a fluid container or container fluid, uh, and all of this is in Bootstrap. So basically, I'm just referencing what is in Bootstrap. You realize automatically, not sure if you guys saw that, but you realize automatically that my input field stretches out more to the edges of my web page. So it has less margins between the input and also the edge of the grid or of the web page, right? So container, container, save, it pushes it in more. But if I should add container fluid, container dash fluid, sorry, it spits it out more, right? Or not spits it out more, but it reduces the margin between the edge of my web page or my grid, whatever it is that you're using to reference the amount of space between your input field and some other element, and also my input field, right? You guys are following, right? So you get how I'm using this part. Yeah, you have to speak to me, guys.
Yeah, I understand at least.
Okay. Taisha, still with me? Joel, type in the chat if you need to. I'm going to always be asking you guys, you know. Okay. Taisha, still here? Alia, type in the chat. I know you're fighting through your own thing, Alia, but just, if you could just type in the chat. So I'm a different type of facilitator. I'm going to ask you if you understand every minute. And it might be annoying, but it's good. All right, there you go. All right. Good, good. Taisha, you still with me? And if Taisha gone, that's what she's staying. Probably gone. All right. So right. So the so container fluid. So that's how that works. Okay. All right. Good. Good, Taisha. Good to know you're still here. Um. So let me just clear cut this. So now, so you guys understand how, in that case, how the container class works for a div element, right? So for me, again, it's about ensuring that I'm laying out my code properly to be able to come back to it and understand what I did. There are sometimes I write code and I leave it for like a week, 2 weeks, a month. And when I come back, I say, what the hell am I right? Because I don't never n- add the proper notations to the code to be able to say, okay, then this is what I was doing with it, and this is what I want to do with it. So notation or comments, very, very critical. You're not going to always be able to do it, but when you can, please do it because it gives you a level of understanding that allows you to leave the code alone and return to it when you can. Or it allows other persons to look at your code and say, okay, this is what he was doing. This is how I can improve it. Because you're not coding for yourself as an engineer. You're writing code for other people. You're going to be working in large organizations and you're going to have to work with people. And people are different. So we need standards. We need ways of communicating, and comments and stuff like that are very, very necessary. Right? Um, so I add my div element and then I add my section element that has an ID of form. So I know that when the JavaScript code is being run, it should represent my form that I'm going to be creating in this area between my section open tag and my section closing tag, right? So that's critical to understand. So I know that, okay, then this is where my form is supposed to be. All right, so now I have my HTML element sorted out. Let's go to JavaScript. So this is my JavaScript code that I created. Lots of stuff, but it's not really, really hard. So how JavaScript works, and let me just put document object. Um, model. So this is going to be critical to understanding how JavaScript works. Yeah, man, give me a second. I think my machine started act up. You're still in, right? All right, let's tell them to move soon forward. Mm.
So hi guys, Andre machine is given a bit of problem. He'll be back just a few minutes. Just give him a few minutes time.
All right, guys, see me now? Sorry about that, guys. Guys, see me? Just confirm.
No, you're frozen. You're frozen too.
Oh, I'm actually seeing. Hold on, let me stop share.
Or me.
Still frozen?
I'm not seeing anything. No.
All right,
There's a black screen.
black screen. Okay, so you guys are hearing me, not seeing me. All right. Give me 1 second. I was going to close the pro. I think what will happen is that let me just scroll on. Let's refresh the page.
Remember, great minds discuss ideas, Average minds discuss.
Yeah, Joel, yes, some cartel. I'm back, guys.
Mhm.
All right, sorry about that. Let me just sort this out so we can just return to our class, or not class, but our discussion. All right, are you guys seeing my screen still?
Yeah.
All right. So, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by Zoom or my machine, depending. Um, JavaScript has a concept called document object model. Now, as a front end developer, you need to fall in love with this um, set of tools. Let's call them set of tools for now, because you'll always be capturing data from web pages and representing it in some way, right? And the document object model is essentially a way for JavaScript to access and change various elements in an HTML document. And an HTML document, as communicated by Shay in a couple of weeks ago, is basically a web page. So when you have multiple HTML documents, you have multiple web pages. If you should reduce Amazon's, the various interfaces on Amazon, right? They're essentially, is either they're a HTML document or a XML document, which we will introduce to you guys further down, but it's basically just HTML documents, right? And the document object model basically allows, structures the HTML documents in such a way that it allows JavaScript or you as the engineer to write code that traverses the various areas of that HTML document, right? So here they speak of the the HTML document object model as a tree of objects. So as an engineer, again, going back to concepts, right? You're going to be taught about like object-oriented programming and object-oriented type of analysis, right? Basically, what this means is that you think about your documents or a particular HTML document as an object. And in that object, you have various properties and stuff that comprise the document. So here, as an example, you'll see, I'm gonna put my charger in. You'll see the document here. Then you have the root element of that document, which is the HTML element. That is also an object. And the element of that HTML or a sub-element or sub-object or a child. Let's look at it in terms of parent and child, right? The child element of that HTML element is the head, right? Another child element of that HTML parent element is the body. These two elements are called sibling elements. Following? Then you have the child element of the head element is what? Is the title element, right? And the child element of the body element is what? The anchor element or the H1 element, right? And then the child element of the the anchor element, which is an attribute called href, right? And then you have the sibling element, sorry, of the anchor element is an attribute called href, right? And these are all objects, right? These are all objects. So when it comes to the document object model, you now begin to think of HTML elements as objects, right? Following, guys? Then you have, hold on, give me a second. Then you have the text object, which is a child of the title object, which is, and the text is called my title, essentially. And then you have text again, it is called my link, and text again is called my header. So if you're reading down here, you'll see that with the object model, JavaScript gets all the power it needs to create dynamic HTML, right? So you can change all of the HTML elements in the page. You can change the HTML attributes in the page. You can change the CSS styles. It can remove existing HTML elements. It can add attributes. It can add new HTML elements. It can react to all existing HTML elements. And it can change new HTML events in the web page. And I'm going to teach you about events as well. But you'll see that essentially what the document object model allows you to do is it allows you to use JavaScript to traverse the surface of these objects or HTML document and change stuff, remove stuff, update stuff. And that is why it is so critical for you to use and understand, for you to understand what the document object model is, because essentially that is the foundation of using JavaScript properly, right? So what is the document object model? Technical term for it, or what they call the denotative meaning, when people want to pontificate and talk at them know stuff. It's a platform and a language neutral interface that allows programs and scripts to dynamically access and update content, structure, style of the document, right? So what it is essentially a concept implemented in technology across the various interfaces. For example, if I should, let me type in some random website, Apple. I'm gonna go inspect element. Right? So you see all of these things that you're seeing here, all the code that you're seeing here, right? All of this is a tree of objects that allows Apple or Apple engineers to write code that updates these objects. All of this that you're seeing here. So this is essentially, let me give you an example. One sec, guys. Okay, that was good. All right, so it seems like a lot of information. It is, and it's not very readable. But this is essentially, this is all JavaScript code that traverses the document, that traverses, what is this? This is our JavaScript code that essentially traverses all of this and updates it when I do something. So when I select, let me see, and when I select chat now, and this comes up, this is JavaScript code. So this is actually a function. So when a function has been attached to this link, it seems like a link, that allows me to, that when an event is applied to it, and I'll teach you about, and I'll talk about JavaScript events, essentially. But When I click this link, a function is called that allows, that brings up this pop-up here, right? That allows me as the user to contact Apple representatives to talk about stuff that I want to buy or whatever the case may be. But what is critical to understand is that the code, the JavaScript code that is used to do this traverses this document and finds this link here, or finds whatever the case may be here, and execute the instruction, which is to what? What is the instruction? To bring up this pop-up here and allow me to contact whomever I need to contact. So if I should do this, again, same JavaScript, just interacting with the document object model or the web page and enabling me to do stuff, right? So it is very critical for you guys to understand what the DOM is. Let's go back here. And it's, as it said, it's platform and language neutral. Understand? So everybody can use it. And in fact, there are other programs, or let's say other languages that can use the document object model. It doesn't matter. You understand? You guys following? Type in the chat again. Somebody. Someone can do it on behalf of everybody.
Yes, we're following, or I'm following.
Cool. All right, so all right, yeah. So going back to my form, I don't want to keep it light. Right. So going back to my form now. So I have created a function that allows me to, when I click this, when I click the create form button, this is created, right? No. Let's click the submit button. No functionality has been added to the submit button, so that's why it says the page isn't working. But yeah, so I can click it 1,000 times, and it creates as many forms as I want to create, right? With all of the nice looking CSS design stuff, which is allowed by Bootstrap, which allows me to create nice forms using Bootstrap. So I want to remember, my objective is to ensure that when the form is created, it is represented here. Let me just put comment. Form is represented here. Again, just some comments to give some context to what I'm doing. So if I want to access, the first thing I need to do with my JavaScript, right, is know where the form ID is, right, or know where to put the form that I create. How do I do this? Well, I have attached or added an ID attribute that has a value of form. Okay, cool. So what I need to do is ensure that that JavaScript knows that it should put the form where the element that has the ID of form is, or between the elements, between the open and closing tag of the element that has the form of ID. Well, how am I going to do that? This is how I do it. Now, the first thing I do in JavaScript is that I need to declare a variable that will store the name of the ID, or the value of the ID attribute that is positioned in the area where I want to put the form. What does this mean? I have a section element in my HTML document that has an ID of form, and I want to put it there. So I need to get that ID. How do I do that? I declare the variable and I assign it to I assign document.query selector with the hashtag form string in that bracket. Now, I know that normally this is what Jason would have done. Well, this is what Jordan would have done. And I'm going to show you what I did query selector. Get element by, not by tag name, but ID equal Now, this and this does the same thing. So if I should comment this out and reload, well, it automatically reloads. It would produce the same thing. Oh, it doesn't. All right. Hold on. It's a nice bug. Let me see something here. It should produce the same output. I'm not sure why. So this is what I call debugging, guys. Let me inspect element for console. Anchor. Document is not a function at what did I do wrong? But it should. Alright. Methods. Oh, I know what I did. Type up. Okay. Save. Should work now. There you go, guys. Right? So again, what I just did was an example of me debugging. Right? So a simple S that was added to this caused it to not work. And that is why it was telling me that it's not a function, because it really wasn't a function. Right? But this does the same thing as this. Right? The difference, I believe, is that, well, yeah, all right, so let's just say it does the same thing as this for now. What I'll do is that I'll put in the chat the reason you should use the query selector over the get element by ID, because the video that I posted in the group actually spoke to it. I don't remember all of it now, so I don't want to mislead you guys. So what I'm committing to doing is actually re-watching that section, or you guys can watch it as well, and I'll put in the group the reason for using query selector over get element by ID in certain cases, but they both do the same thing, right? Let me just undo this. Right. So the first thing I do is get that form, and if I should console log and output the section variable in my browser, you realize that this is what is here, right? So now this element, or in this case, this object, because remember, for the document object model, an HTML document is just comprised of a tree of objects. Going back again, so I'm going back to principles here, right? No, hold on. So when a web page is loaded, the browser creates a document object model of the page. The HTML DOM is constructed as a tree of objects. So all of this here to a browser is basically a tree of objects, right? The browser creates, so the browser when the web page is loaded, the browser itself creates a tree of objects called the document object model, right? So this is a object, and it's some child, it's an object of a parent. So it's a child object of a parent object, essentially. So this, the div element in the class of container is the parent object of the section element with a ID of form. So I'm using these terminologies, guys, because what I want you to get in the habit of doing, and it will be, for some persons, it will probably be difficult to remember some of the terminologies where you understand the concept, but I believe as engineers, you should be able to communicate properly. There's this stereotype or this trope that engineers don't like people or don't like to talk to people or they can't communicate properly. And I don't believe that. Because as you can see, Mr. Gordon or teacher can communicate quite properly to you guys. But yeah, so this is a section object, essentially, right? Or child object. Once that happens, so I now have that. What I also need to do is Well, I created this break line element, but it's not necessary. What I just wanted to do is just bring some space between each form that has been created. But if with JavaScript, you can also create an element. How do you do that? Well, first you create the variable, use a document um, called a keyword dot. So this keyword here, document. Let me just again give you guys some context. But I want to use the right word when I'm speaking. New documents, keyword in JavaScript. I just love the okay, so this keyword here, document. Now, when the HTML, the document or the tree of objects, or the tree of objects represented is loaded, it becomes a document object. So this here, this simple element here is an object, essentially, or this whole area here is an object, document object. Now, when that is created, right? What you automatically, it becomes the root node of the HTML document. Now, this document object has a slew of methods that you can use to do stuff on your web page. So my web page has been created already. Once I write the document keyword, I now have access to a bunch of methods, one of which is create element, right? So what I want to do is create a break line element. I create my variable, BR, I name it BR, I can name a variable anything, right? I assign document, which is the object itself, and I access the method create element. And within that method, I just put quote in quotes BR. What this automatically does is that it creates, and let me console log to show you guys what's up. It automatically creates a break line element. Let me reload. Now, so there's my break line element. And the break line element, what does the break line element do? It creates a new line, right? So this is what I've done. So and this is just for giving space between each form that I create. So I have this form, I select it again, and now there is, so this is where the break line element comes in. This space between the submit button of the first form and the first name input field of the second form. The space between that is where my break line element is applied. So I do these two things. So I now have two variables, my section variable and my break line variable. I need a function though, because remember the objective, sorry, is to create these forms. So how do I create a function? I use the function keyword here. Then I name my form, add my braces, add my brackets, sorry, then I add my opening curly brace. So let me go to, again, WSP schools, and let me go to, where can I go? Functions. Where is no one didn't say no one gave the arrow function. Oh, here we go. So JavaScript function, right? So what is a function? A block of code designed to perform a particular task, right? The function is executed when someone invokes it or calls it. Either is the same. So to create the syntax of a function is defined. First of all, a function is defined by the function keyword which I applied. Then it's followed by the name, and it's followed by parentheses, right? The function names can contain letters, digits, blah, 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 and it goes on to basically give the rules of how to construct a proper function. Down here, you'll see an example of it, function name, parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3. These are basically variable. Well, I don't want to confuse it between the variable and parameter. But let's say we're using variables for now, right? Um, and the parameters or the variables are listed in the parentheses. Um, and it allows you to receive arguments, which are the values received by the function when it is invoked. What does this really mean? All right, so I have added my name to this. Right now, my function is not receiving any parameter or any variables, but within the curly brace, this is what this is where the actual invocation, or when the function is invoked, this is what really will happen. All of this will happen. So when I call my function, and I'll show you where I call it in the HTML document, the first thing it will do is that it will create the form, because remember, we're creating a form. Well, the first thing in creating a form is that I need to create a form element. How do I do this? Again, going back to how I created the breakline element, I created my variable, const variable, and I assigned my form element by using the document keyword and accessing, or the document object, and accessing the create element method. That's the first thing I do. Then what do I do? Okay, so now I've created my form variable. In creating my form variable, I now have access to certain methods. One is called the set attribute. So now my form needs to have some attribute. And remember now, guys, all I'm basically doing is replicating. Let me give an example. If I was to do this in the HTML document, all I would do is this. So I created my form, and the set some attributes here, right? So first attribute that I need to do is create the method attribute, and the value is post. The second thing that I need to do is what? Add the action attribute. Sorry. Action attribute, and then I put, in this case, I would want, the action attribute allows me to post or access some sort of web page or submit something. So let me just put submit.py, right? You can ignore this one now, but that is when it actually involve backend stuff and posting to the database or the server, whatever the case may be, right? What I'm doing now in my HTML document is what I am doing here. It's just that I'm just using JavaScript to do it, right? So I have my form that set attribute, the set attribute method, and I add some arguments to it or some parameters to it. The first parameter takes the attribute itself. The second parameter takes the value of the attribute. And it's the same thing here. Now I need to create, I now have my form element or my form object on my document, right? The second thing that I need to do, the second thing that I need to do is that I need to create my input element. How do I do this? Same thing. I can name my variable anything that I want to name it. Now, my first input element should take the first name of the person, right? The first name of the person. How do I do this? Okay, document dot create element input. That's my input element, and I need to set some attributes to it. And it's the same thing. First parameter, the attribute. Second parameter, the value of the attribute. And it goes on and on and on. And this essentially is replicated for each element that I'm adding to my form. The first form takes the first name. The first field, sorry, takes the first name. The second field takes the input, the last name. Third field takes the date of birth. Fourth field takes the email address. Fifth field takes the password. So you guys understand that a lot of the stuff is really repetitive. So basically what I did, when I was creating this is that when I created the first variable, I just copied and paste this and change up the names because you realize that this is repetitive. And what you're doing is creating these objects for your, so you're creating these child objects for your form object, right? Because remember, going back to JavaScript and how they think about the HTML DOM, let me just bring this up, bring up the HTML DOM because I want you guys to always be referencing correct terms and understanding what you're doing and using the right terminology because you are software engineers after all, right? Now, going back to this, you realize is that, for example, is one, no, none of it. All right, so that's fine. So the input element here or the input object would be a child object here or a child element. It's the same thing, right? It's just that we're representing things differently. So in the context of the document object model, an input element is an input object. You know, it can get confusing, but over time you'll have an appreciation for how the document object model represents or thinks about. As you consume the information, you'll understand how it is structured, right? Um, but yeah, so the input element is an input object and it's a child object of the HTML object itself, or what they call the root object or the root node, right? No, the root element is the HTML root node would be a document object. Because again, going back to what the document object does when you create a web page is that when you create the web page, the browser create a document object, sorry. And that document object is contains all of its child objects. So that is how it's working in representing the information. You guys are following? Just let me know if I chat foolishness or you not understanding. Yeah. Somebody type in the chat or yeah. Let me see what's in the chat. Some persons are typing in the chat. Repeat which part, Joel? You're talking about the document object aspect that I was talking about? Okay. All right. So let me just bring up the content as well, so just to give you some context to what is happening. Document. Sorry for having a big face, guys. I'm looking at my camera and realizing I'm making face big. Document as a model. I just want to give you some. All right. So when the browser, when when you create a web page, the browser creates a document object. So all web pages, so this is a document object. 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 These are all document objects. Now, when that happens, what this automatically allows you to do, or what this automatically provides for you, is a set of methods that are attached to that document object. An example of that, right? And it outlines it here. The document object represents your web page. If you want to access any element in an HTML page, you always start with accessing the document object. For example, if you want to access a form with a particular ID or element with a particular ID, you put document.get element by ID. The document object, which is your web page, which now automatically has a lot of methods, one of which is the get elements by ID. So do you understand that, Joel? Just confirm if you understand that before I move on into explaining the other aspect of it. Okay, cool. Now, once you understand that, if the document object, which is your web page, essentially comprises a tree of objects, which is what? Um, Let me go back. Which is what is indicated here, right? When the web page is loaded, the browser creates a document object model of the web page, which is the same thing as saying it's a document object. Now, the HTML DOM model is constructed as a tree of objects. So your document object, which is your web page, comprises a tree of objects. Now, if it comprises a tree of objects, how are you going to represent these tree of objects? Well, in this case, it represents it as an hierarchy of objects. In this case, you have the HTML root. So you have the document object, which is the root node or the root object, right? Boom, we understand that. The child of that root node or the child of that document object, which is your web page, going back to that, is your HTML element. Now you can also call your HTML element, which is essentially this. Go back to here, so which is essentially this, right? That is the first child object of the document object, which is the root. So remember, if you're looking at a tree, you have the root of the tree, which is the document object, and then everything else. But the root is the root, right? It's the second level of that, from top to bottom, is your root element, which is your HTML element or your document or your HTML object. Same thing. Different terminology, but same thing. Now below that, you have children, one of which is your head element or your head object. Now that head element or object is the child of your HTML root element, right? The body element is also a child of the HTML element. Again, going back to here, you have your head element or your head object, and then you have your body element or your body object. Both of these are children of the HTML element. However, they are both siblings of each other, right? Because as you can see, based on the hierarchical graph here, you have the head element over here, and you have the body element over here. Now, both of these elements also have children. For the head element, you have the title element or the title object. Remember, going back to what W3 School is telling us, that the document object is constructed as a tree of objects. A big object upon the sitting, a bag of object, long so, right? Now, so the head element and the body element, or the body object or the head object, while they are siblings, they have children, one of which is the head object has a title object, which is a child object of itself, of the head element, right? So look at this. You have the head element, which is a child of the HTML element, but the head element has a child as well, which is the title element. The body element, which is a child of the HTML element, also has a child or has children, the anchor element and the H1 element. Following, Joel?
Yeah.
Cool. So am I clear? Have I cleared up the concerns they have or the confusion?
Yeah, man, understand what you're saying now.
Okay, cool. You guys, everybody else is understanding? I don't want to give you guys. Taisha, is here with us? Alia? I don't know if
Yeah,
Alia.
I'm still here.
Okay, good, good. I like that. Oh, Alia gone. Oh my God. I mean, I've got to link Alia outside the class there. But yeah. Right. So basically, that is how it works. Now,
Yeah, I link it outside the class to both something.
all right. All right. Right. So that's how that works. Now, let me go back to my Jace. Let me go back to Jace. Now, as I've said before, it's basically just repeating all of these things. It's just repeating a lot of things, right? Um, I was at the password, right? So now I set my password. Okay, good. Now I have um, all of my fields for my form, but I need a submit button. And I think this is where I was saying that I would just show Jordan how to use a button element instead of the input element. Well, within the context of Bootstrap, right? Now, I want to name my button submit. Again, context. I need to be clear in my code. So I've named my button submit, right? Um, I want to create a submit button. Again, how do I do this? I use my document object keyword, and I call my create element function, or invoke my create element function, and I pass a value or a parameter of button in it. What this does, and again, let me console log. As an engineer, when you're debugging stuff or you want to see stuff at a lower level, you want some clarity, you just use console.log, sorry. And the word console is actually an object calling a log method. So you realize JavaScript is not an object-oriented language, but it uses concepts from object orientation, which basically, let me just give some clarity on that. Thinking about object-oriented thinking or analysis basically considers everything as objects, and those objects have properties and methods. So a car is an object, and a car has certain properties like a model, a name, a year. A car also has certain methods. And an object, a car also has certain methods, like a car has a drive method, a turn method, a brake method. So what object-oriented thinking or analysis does is that it represents the real world as objects in code, right? Now, JavaScript takes certain elements of that. It's not an object-oriented language, just to be clear, but it takes certain elements of that, and we go deeper into that as well. But so I want to see what my submit button looks like. So I just do that. I go to the console. Uh, so why is it not spitting out let's try this again. Button attributes. Let's see if something happens here. All right, so this is not, it's not spitting out my button for me to see what's happening there. So I'm wondering if I miss console log. Same thing. Why? Okay, let me see something. Let's copy and paste. Let's see. Oh, okay, no. Oh, I see what happened. All right. Because it's in the function, because the console.log is in the function itself, I have to call the function for me to see the button element that I created. But this is the button element essentially, right? So this contains all of what I created here. So it's working essentially. So for the button element is the same process. You set attributes to your button element. The first attribute you set is a type attribute, and it has a value of submit, right? The second one is the class attribute, and it has this value. Now remember, going back to Bootstrap, if I want to create a button, I want to create a button. What the fuck? If I want to create a button, all I have to do It's just copy and paste this. Or if I want to create it from scratch, right? All I have to do is set type equal button and class equal btn dash primary large. Oh, and you also have the ability to create large buttons as well. So what I did was to not only set it to btn dash primary, but add a btn large as well to it. So same thing, I set the attribute, use the attribute, call the attribute function, class, attribute of class, and this is the value. I also added submit to my button, which is what you saw here. This is submit. To do that, I've used the inner HTML property. So remember, going back to objects and what objects do. Objects have properties and methods, right? If we agree that the button object that I created, the button element that I created, is a part of this tree of objects which we have agreed on. Because remember, when the browser creates a web page, it creates a document object. A document object has properties and methods. So one of the properties of a document object is inner HTML. What does this do? Well, it basically allows me to add text here. So in the same way that I did this, I basically added some stuff between the opening and the start tag of the button element. Oh shit. Yeah. Me doing this, I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just using my inner HTML property, the inner HTML property of the function. Sorry, the inner HTML property of the submit object, which is a part of the tree of objects, to do that. Now, when the person inputs their name, so now that we have a form, right? We have a form. Hold on. Right. So now we have the form, the elements of the form. Now what we need to do is put them together, to put everything together. Because we don't have everything together now. We just have these various objects that we've created, or the elements that we've created. We don't have them together as an actual form. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, we use the append method of the form object. Remember, and I cannot stress this enough, guys, it might sound annoying, but understanding these fundamentals is critical. The append method is now a method of the form object that I created here, way up here at the top. Not created, sorry, but accept. Yeah, I did create the form, right? Up here, way up here at the top, right? Now I'm taking that form object and I'm saying, okay, I want to append the first name as a child object to it. Because now the form object is the parent object. I want to attach that. I also want to attach a
Excuse me.
Sure.
Sorry.
Jordan?
Could you just go over the form creation method or function that you made?
Oh, okay. Not the function. Where? This here?
Yeah.
No, sorry. It's line 11.
Yes.
Okay. So what I did, remember again, I want to remember because I need a form, right? I need a form. So what I need to do, I need to create a form element. I need to do this, but in JavaScript. So I need to do this, but in JavaScript. I don't want to be typing this in my HTML document. How do I do this? Well, okay. I create a variable named form. That's the first thing I do. a const, sorry, not a variable, but a const name form. And if you look back at the video, the guy from Traverse Media, something like that, actually goes through it. So I create a const name form, and I assign document.create element with the form string in that method, and I assign all of this to the const form. How is it that I'm able to do that? Well, remember, when the browser creates a web page, it creates a document object. And the object has properties and methods.
I think
How do you access those?
I think I understand now. Gonna look back at the
Okay. Okay, good, good. All right, good, good. That's lovely. All right, so moving on. So I create my form and I append my first name to my form. Remember, the first name is not literally a first name. The first name is a const that contains the input element. So I'm basically attaching my input element to my form element in the same way that I would have done this. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing, but using JavaScript. So don't get it twisted, guys. It's the same thing, but I'm just using JavaScript to do it. It looks scary, but it's not. Right? Now, let me bring up clone node, so I don't mislead you guys. Clone node method. And all right, so so this is what I append the first name input element, but I also want to have some space between my first name input element and my last name input element. So what I did, I also want to append a break line element to um, my form to ensure that when I do this, ignore this part, but when I do, let me just remove our comment out, please, so it doesn't mislead you. So the space between my first name element and my last name input element is this, right? So what I basically did was I said, okay, I want to do that, but I don't want to have to create it from here. So what I basically did was say, okay, append br.clone node, the the clone node method to the form element. What does clone node do? What it basically does is that it copies all of the it copies the break line element that I created in further up, and I'll show you, and all its child nodes. No, it has this in this case. It has no child node, no children node. Sorry, but so I copied this and put it here. But remember, the question is, why would I use a clone node method? Because the BR element is also an object. Because when the browser creates a web page, it's creating a document object which contains a tree of objects. Everything here is an object. You have the input element object, you have the submit button object. All of these are objects. And with all objects, you have properties and methods. So there's a reason I'm repeating that. Because if you don't get that as an engineer, JavaScript is going to be one of the worst languages you'll ever experience because it can get confusing. I'm still confused about the goddamn thing, right? So we have this. And I'm doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, right? So I have now created my form. I've appended all of my child objects to my form. Input, first name, last name, email, password, all of these things, right? I've done that, but it's not over. I still need to now represent my form here. How do I do this? Well, oh, I did that. Oh, what I could just call this a person. But anyways, it no matter. So I did. So I what I did. I did. So what I'm doing. What I did here. Um, I also did here. So I'm just repeating my thing, but it's fine. It's the same thing. So what I did was just to say, okay, then document object, get me the query selector method, and attach that to, and attach to that the form that I created. Because remember, this is also an object with an ID. It's an element, it's an object, the ID of form. So I get that object and I said, append the form object that I just created, that the form that I just created, to um, the section object as a child. So I just said, okay, then document that query selector. The method takes the hashtag form as a parameter or variable. And then this now becomes an object. With this object, I can access the append child method that I can put or assign the form um, object as a parameter to it. Let me go over that again. If I had, let me remove this. If I had put section here, right, and I close this, I saved this, sorry, reload, and I did this, I will get the same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. Why? Because I already got the section form at the top here, so. So all I did was just to use this down here. So it can either be the var of the const that you're using up here, so I can be this. It doesn't matter, right? So I append my form object to my section object as a child, and then I have also applied, again, a break line element or a break line object to it. So now, let me reload. Let me reload. When I do this, it's just creating these things over and over and over and over and over again. Doesn't matter, right? And that's basically it. That is how I created a simple applet or an app that allowed me to create multiple forms. And there's so many other things that I could do to this. I could add some validation to it. I could ensure that when I press the submit button, something happens. Let me give an example, guys. I have this here. Is it working? So this is a simple form that I created. What should happen is that when I add, are you seeing it, guys? Are you seeing the Nyla label and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Okay, good. So when I select submit, hopefully it works. All right. So when I select submit, this happens. Right? If I should put something else, this happens. Put something else, this happens. Right? So this is a different format I created as well with some styling. And this is also good stuff that I also created. So you can do so many things with it. It's crazy. There was a I'm not sure if all you guys are all here, but there was also some code that um Mr. Gordon or Shay was working on. Shay Andre was working on when he was trying to it's hacker type vibes, but he was trying to access the photos from UTech, right? And he was having this bug there. He actually fixed it and sent the code to me. Let me show you how it actually works. Let me just bring it up. And then we're going to this just go into the discussion with you guys about your understanding of what I just did. Uh, let me just bring up, where's the code? Where's the code? All right. Let me just bring this up. Mhm. We must go live with this now. All right, so these are like literally people from UTEC, right? And it's, as you can see, I'm gonna cancel. So it's not running the code, right? So some of these people, some of these names, somebody like, all right. So let me just bring up the code and show you what that means. So let's walk you through. All right, so these are legit photos of people who currently attend UTEC, or in the past. Some of them current, some of them in the past. So this is the JavaScript code. So it's running from. So this is essentially the JavaScript code that did is doing all of this. Right? So everybody knows that everybody gets an ID number, right? So right, so this is somebody, right? So what this is doing is essentially, and this is an example, Jordan, of creating a function that does not use the function attribute, or the function keyword. Apologies, right? Now everybody gets an ID. So what Shay did was just create a number that, because he used to go to UTEC, so probably he knows that everybody's um, number has a 1, 2, and then 0, 0, 0 in it, right? But the first two numbers are like 1 and 2, right? So he creates a variable or a let. Again, I'm just going, what I encourage you guys to do is look at the video, because some of these words that I'm using you may not be familiar with, but if you watch the video, you get some clarity on it. Um, so he creates a let, names it I, assigns a number to it. Then he creates the function, names the function set interval. Well, no, so the set interval function is actually not a user-defined function, but it's actually uh, a default function, a predefined function. Let me just bring it up for you. Set interval JavaScript.
Yeah, the set interval is a predefined function.
A method, sorry. Predefined method, sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's why they'll
Yeah.
use the function.
Yeah. Um, all right, so I'm going to show you the arrow function, Jordan, to show you how it works, to show you that you don't have to necessarily leave the function. Right, so this is a predefined method that you can use. Basically, what it does is that um, how do I put this? So it basically runs some time. It allows you to have some, I want to make it as simple as possible. Set interval method call the function and value an expression as specified. All right, so yes, so basically what it does is that it calls a particular function um, at specific intervals. So in this case, for every 3 milliseconds, it will call this function. And Jordan, just to refer to what you were saying, um, this is actually a function. So you have a set interval predefined method. And then within that method, you have this function. And you realize that we're not using the function keyword to create it, right? Now, this is actually what they call an arrow function. Let me just bring this up. So we've established that the set interval predefined the function. Predefined just means it comes with JavaScript out of the box, right? In agreement that that executes a function every couple intervals or time intervals. Essentially, in this case, it will be three milliseconds. 3,000 is 3 milliseconds. Now, the set interval function or method is using or calling this arrow function every 3 milliseconds for us to find these photos or to represent these photos. Right? Again, and you realize that again, these are legit people who are attending UTech or have attended UTech. Um, and I'm going to tell you why you're getting the 404 error as well. But I just want to bring up the arrow function just to show you how to construct it. A big part of being an engineer, sorry guys, a big part of being an engineer is understanding how to construct proper code, right? So arrow functions were introduced, in a later version of JavaScript, and it basically allows you to write shorter functions. Now, this is how you create a normal function, which is what Jordan did. This is how you create arrow function, right? You still need to assign a variable to the function, assign the function to a variable. You could assign the function to a variable, right? But in this case, you don't need the function keyword. You use the arrow. You have the braces. You use the fat arrow. You have the brackets. You use the fat arrow, and then you have the open and close curly braces, and you just tell the function to return hello world. But you can go deeper into it because you can have the function in so many. You can create arrow function in so many ways. You can use W3 schools or use MDN to kind of understand deeply how it works. But you don't have to use the function keyword. And also there are limitations on how you use the arrow function. So it's critical that you read on that as well, guys. So W3 schools and Mozilla Developer Network, read those two resources. I'm going to put them in a document and send it in the class as well, in the WhatsApp group, sorry. But read those because documentation is critical. Understanding what you're doing is critical. And we champion competence at Nyla. So we don't want you guys just to be using the stuff and not understanding the thing. It doesn't represent well on you. And of course, it doesn't represent well on what we're trying to do. In building out this community and building competent people, right? You don't have many competent people in jobs and stuff like that, in certain jobs. So please value your competence. But yeah, so we have the arrow function, and then what this does is that it says, okay, then this is a document object, right? This is a document object. Cool. I want to use a get elements by tag name method, which will take the body element, right? This is the body element. This right here, this is the body element, right? And I want to put, all right, so again, going back to objects, arrays and stuff like that, you realize that you see a 0 here, right? No. Again, always referencing documentation to provide some clarity. Let me just put this. So get element by tag name. Bam, bam. Give me a second, guys. So I can just words that I want to ensure that the words that I'm using, I can use my own interpretation of this stuff, but I always want to give you guys a source as well and reference the source so you have proper information and not my interpretation of the information. All right, so the get element by tag name, get elements by tag name method returns an array like HTML object, or it returns an array like object. Now, an array is accessed by using a certain type of approach, right? So, what is an array? Array is a collection of elements. So, in JavaScript, this is an array. Shit, no. So and this is how you construct an. This is an example of how you construct an array, right? So this is an example, but I want to access each array. How do I access each array? Well, arrays are indexed or arrays are positioned based on certain numbers, and the first number in an array is always, or the first element in an array is always positioned in a 0 position. So in an array, you don't count 1, 2, 3. You count 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I want to access this array and print it out, this array element, sorry, and print it out, what I'll do, let me just assign this as a variable. var r, sorry, boom. So to get this and print it in my log, all I would have to do is type the array variable, square braces, then put 0. Let me log this and show you how it looks. And I'm giving you this because I want to show you why the 0 exists here. Now, if I could go back here, you see that it comes out, right? Because 0 represents the first position of this element in my array. Now, if the get elements by tag name method returns an array like object, then what I want to do is access the first element in that array, right? When I access the first element in that array, I want to attach these images in that first element. So I use the inner edge. So basically this returns an array like object. I get the first element in that array like object, and I access the inner HTML property of that array like object. And then once I do that, then I attach the images in it. Now, again, for clarity, let's go back to this. The function get elements by tag name will return an array like HTML collect an object. Ignore that. And when you access this object with the index 0, it will give you the first entry of that data structure. You guys following what I'm saying? Just let me know if I need some clarity on it.
Understand.
Understand? Joel? Daman is still there? Damani, Taisha is still with us. You guys following?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Damani,
Yeah, man, I'm here.
are you following?
Yeah, man, I'm understanding what you're saying with the element.
All right, cool. Right. So, and let me just put this in the chat. If you guys, put it in the chat. But if you guys want some more clarity, you can just use the Mozilla Network (MDN) to get some more clarity on it. All right. So once I get that, then this image, so let me just, because he actually gave me, let me pull up his oh, we need to, okay, I need to do that. No problem, no problem. So this, now this URL here gives you access to all the photos, right? But it gives you access to the photos that are stored on the UTEC servers. But I don't know, but I don't know the how do I put this? I don't know the student ID for these UTEC students. But apparently, um, what Shay knows is that each student ID would probably start with 1, 2, 1 and 2. And then it's just about cycling or updating the various zeros. So what he did was to say, okay, then I now have the inner HTML, right? Let me put this image tag. And to put an image tag in an HTML element, you just use a backtick. So you just use a backtick, and I have HTTPS :// envision web.utech.edu.jm, which is again a URL, and SIP. So I'm just walking you through the URL: SIPR/SITS.URD // I did backslashes, yeah, slash forwards slash images slash photos slash. Now this is a variable. So how do you add variables to a string essentially? Well, you use the money sign, dollar sign, sorry, open curly braces, you put the I variable, which contains this here, you close it, .jpg, and then you put the quotation mark, you put the backslash, and you put the arrow, closing it. But in order to do this, you have to use these backticks here, right? So maybe an example. String, let string equal Andre. Now to append the string, I could just say, so I know how this saved, right? I'd rather put it over here. So let me put it over here. So script, no style, no script I'm gonna post here. Sorry guys. Script so this is here, so right now paragraph. In the same way that Jordan this morning used the backtick to say, okay, then I have a string and I want to make that add that string to, instead of just doing using the name variable, sorry. So how he did it was just to do this and then append the string variable to it, right? That's how he did it. And then you can just add that to whatever form or whatever HTML element you want. There's another way of doing it by just saying, okay, then using the backtick, I can say, okay, then I want to append this string. The string, let me just, the name string. And I want to say, okay, after the colon, I want to put this variable there. All I have to do is just say, curly braces, string. And it's the same thing. So there are different ways of appending variables to string. You can use this to append the variable that contains the Andre string. So the str variable contains the Andre string. And you want to append that to the name string, right? So when I print it, it would come out like, I don't want you guys to just, let me, paragraph, ID, P, R, A, then I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna say document dot get and put query selector, um, 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 hashtag para. So I now have that. Let me just assign a const to this const, or assign this to a const. Sorry, paragraph. Then paragraph. Inner HTML equal. Oh, I will need to put this next para or PR. PR. All right, so it's not this. Which one is it again? Oh, all right. So let me see if this. All right. So you realize that this is here. Oh, this no, it doesn't have to be. It keeps reloading still, but you just saw it a while ago, right, guys? With the name and Andre. You saw this a while ago, right? Let's confirm that, please. I never have to put Andre for this year. So you saw, guys, you saw this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this, what I did here and here, is the same thing that Shay did here. So it's basically attaching this I variable to this string, this URL string. But he needs to use the backtick for that to be possible. He could have done it another way, but this is an easier way. So right now, so boom. So we have the set interval predefined method that executes this function. This is an unknown function. We don't have a name for it. It executes this unknown function every 3 milliseconds, right? And each time this is executed, you increment this variable by 1. So if I should reload this, you realize that no, we have 12, we have 100, with this 12, we have, or it increments it by, right, it increments it by 1. So we have 120000, then we have 1200002, 1200003, 1200004, 1200005. So it keeps on incrementing each time it's executed. So each 3 milliseconds that it's executed, right? It's also incremented by 1. so that basically what we're doing is cycling through these numbers to find which one of them is actually attached to a student. So let me see if one come up. So none yet. All right, so we know that 18 is, so 12000018 is attached to a student photo. See if we can find another one. Still loading. So the 404 is saying, the 404 basically is a status code that says there's no resource. All right, so now we know that 012000027 is attached to a photo, 29 is attached to a photo. Oh, so it's basically bringing back the ones. So these numbers, right? So we know that 00035 is attached to a photo, but 37 and 36 is not attached. We know that. Okay. So you realize what is happening, guys, right? So it's basically just incrementing the stuff by one to find out which one of these numbers are attached to a photo, and then we're seeing a bag of people. That's how it works. I'm gonna send you the guys the code, give you access to the code so you can just look at it and play around with it, try to understand it some more. And if you guys want, I'll just have Shay kind of write out like a document that explains how the codes work, how the code works. Sorry. But that's essentially how that one works. I did this to just show you the power of JavaScript and what you're able to do with it. You were saying something, Jason? Or Jordan, sorry.
I have a couple of questions. The backtick
Right.
just says that I will append that string
Right. So
or line of
so
code.
so the backtick just allows you to do it in a better way, right? So if I wanted to, let me go back to my photo. I could do the same thing here as this, which is what you did. Let bam bam equal. So I could just say name plus string variable. It's the same thing, right? But then I would just have to add some other stuff. And if it gets larger and larger, right? What the backtick allows me to do is say, okay, then I want to attach put a string and a variable together. And then how do I do this? Well, if I'm using the backtick, this is the syntax that I'm going to be using, essentially. So you can try it for yourself and let me know like where you get and stuff like that. But it's just a different way of
What's the name of it?
what is here?
Yeah, like so I want to do my research on it.
Oh, it's called a backtick. So you can probably check, type in JavaScript backtick and see um, backtick, backtick string and see what happens. Right. So again, going back to the MDN, right? So template literals are things allowed embedded. Question you can use multi-line. So again, what MDN allows you to do is actually use the specific technical terminology for some of these things. That's what I'm encouraging you guys to use the MDN. Type in develop.mozilla.org and you will see all of the web technologies that are used for web developers. And it gives you these people, the persons who did this document are the persons who essentially built the web or contributing to building the web as you see it now, right? So the guy who developed WSC schools is the guy who, I think his name is Tim, what is it? Uh, guy who created the web. Tim Berners-Lee. You guys can research this guy. right? He's the guy that essentially created. Um, so he invented the World Wide Web essentially, right? So right, so he invented the World Wide Web essentially. So researching, right? But the Mozilla Developer Network and W3 schools use those resources to guide you on the proper terminologies to use, to guide you guys on how to construct your stuff um, properly. You can also use Stack Overflow if you're having problems or you want to debug some stuff, right? So use the resources, guys. These are actually very, very useful. Um, but that is essentially uh, the class. I also
I
want
have
to.
one,
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I have one more question. So when Shay sent me the code and he said I should put it in the console of the web page, and he gave me the link, but I saw that you put it in Visual Studio and ran it. So I want to know how you did that. Like, is it because the link is there that
Oh,
you're able
right.
to get access to the photos?
Oh, yeah, man. So yeah. So he told me to put it in the console as well, and I did, and it worked. But I also wanted to have it in like a folder document. So, um, oh, so what I did was, so it's the same thing, in terms of constructing and stuff. So you know that this is JS code. They put it in JS code. You could have CSS as well to do some styling on it. Um, I used the HTML just to access it. So basically, what I did, you don't have to. You can ignore this part because this is not necessary. Um, but I wanted to ensure that the JavaScript was being represented in the HTML code. So of course, you have to use the script element and the source attribute to reference this external document, JS document, right? Now to run it, there is a let me see. There's a go live. Let me see. There is a go live search extensions. Right. So there's a go live extension that allows you to run. Um, where is it? Let me search for my extension.
What I mean was like how you know how you get access to the website to then be able to just run the code for your studio. Because
Right.
when
So
you
that's what I'm. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, that's basically what I was
The,
saying. So you're
your,
going to
yeah. So there's something called live server because you want to know how I brought it up on the web page, right?
like in because as I was saying, he said put it in the browser
Mm.
in the console of the website, but I didn't see
Oh,
where you went to the website and then put the reference the code to it. So
right. So exactly. So what I'm saying is that in my HTML, in my Visual Studio, sorry, there's an extension called the live server that allows me to run my code. So let me show and not tell. So let me exit this, right? So I no longer have that web page up. In order for me to have the web page up, right? I would just select here. Let me just so click to run live server. So I selected it. Inspect element, console. I know it's running it. So the extension that I downloaded or added to my Visual Studio application is called Live Server, which allows me to run the code live and show me the exact same thing that you saw when you put it in the console. You understand,
I understand what you're
Jordan?
saying. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if
Mm.
it's answering the question. Um,
Okay, all right, repeat the question so I can get more clarity.
I don't really know what this is because like
So tell me what Shay told you to do, and then tell me the concern that you have.
Shay told me to just go to the website and he gave me the eVision link. So I went to that website and then I also was able to put it in the console and then it ran, which is fine. But what I see you do is like
All right.
you didn't go to the
Yeah.
the eVision site. You just put the code in the editor and it went there. That's what I was saying.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if I so when I when I put it in my editor, right, and I don't added the live server
Because I
to
have that.
my you have the live server.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so bring up share your screen because we're just going to let's just solve this problem now. Share your screen and show me what's up. Just share your screen.
I do have the something there open. The
You
browser.
don't have it up.
I do have the oh oh
The code up.
yeah, the code. Can as I see. Into screens.
All right.
Yeah, what I was because I do have the code run. I didn't save the code.
All right. Just run it in the console. Let me see it.
I do have the code. You can put type it in the chat. Maybe I can copy it.
Okay. Okay. No problem. Exit full screen. It's in the chat.
Where access? Uh,
Chat.
where to chat? Oh, see.
Oh, because you're sharing.
Yeah,
All
I
right, go
found it.
over. You see? Okay.
Because I can run this.
Mhm.
But you see, like I would have site first.
Mhm.
All right, let me see. Yeah, I would have to go to the
Which
website
one?
first.
All right, let's just walk through the process, man. Walk through it. Just walk me through the process. Just tell me what happened. See, it's running. It's running. You know.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah, it's running. That's what I'm saying. Like if you just
Oh,
copy the code exactly. Now, if you set up your you set up your folder to contain photos.js, photos.html, and you reference reference the JS folder in your HTML folder, and you use the Go Live server, it will do the same thing. The
repeat
only
that.
difference is,
Repeat that.
you know what I'm saying? If you set up your folder, right,
Mm-hmm.
to contain that JS code and also an HTML document, and you reference the JS document in the HTML document by using the script element and attaching. So say for example, if you name your JS document JSON.js and you name the HTML document JSON.html and you reference the JSON.js document in the HTML document by using the script element, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you run the live server, it will do the same thing that it's doing right now when you paste in the console,
Mm-hmm. Is it
right? So that's it. Hmm?
is it because it has the HTTP this website here?
Exactly. It already has the link. So I think when he said go to the website, he really meant just open up a browser, open up a console, paste it in the console and run it.
Okay. All
Because
right.
remember, the photos are stored on a server somewhere and can be accessed using that URL.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, guys. So I also want to discuss in closing, because we took a lot of time, but in closing, I also want to discuss your experience at Nyla and some of the stuff that you'd want to be improved. I know I asked a lot, but it's a big part of how we evolve as a community because we want to help a lot of other persons. And one of the reasons we're not really because we basically stopped accepting persons for this cohort. If you know persons who want to join, we still welcome them for the next cohort in next year, but we really want to ensure that we are providing value and not misleading you guys or providing low quality stuff. So just let me know, like, how has your experience been thus far, and how do you think we can improve um, your experience here? And you guys have to talk. So it's not a situation because I see you, Jordan, you've been talking. The man, I see you, Joel and Taitwell. Taisha, we can call you later and we work out. Because your situation kind of different. But Joel and Damani and Jordan, let's talk to me, please. So, am I not talking to me? No plan for start. Young man. So, oh, okay. So we teach too fast. All right. Joel, is it that you cannot unmute? Because I would love for you to just unmute and speak to us. Or you'd prefer to do it in the chat?
Hello?
Yes. Yeah, man. Talk to me, Joel.
Yeah, may I say?
Yeah.
Well, I like everything so far, but it's just that overall, sometimes I feel like when you teach a bit too fast. So, like when I teach, you have to keep in mind, so, well, I don't know about the others, but for me, it's completely new to me. Isn't
Yeah.
it? So that's why sometimes I have to repeat what you say and things some more, make sure I understand what you say. I mean, I assume that you mean, or,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
more completely understand what you say.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Cause like me realize I'm really knowledgeable about it and things. So I just want to teach a bit slower and make sure that everybody understand. So
Right.
me like the fact you keep on ask that. So you can tell that to share to cause when him a teach, him not really ask that. Isn't me? So yeah, you can make him know that too as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. All is checking, we don't know.
yeah.
All right, cool. Anything else?
Not really, I just that because as me said, my sister is knowledgeable about it and things, so I'm willing to learn about it. But
Oh,
as me, for me,
yeah.
because the work of me do,
Yeah.
sometimes work long hours and things, so I'm kind of tired. So I'm come home, me stressed out. Honestly, me stressed out, so I just want to relax and thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, me have, yeah, me have to try put in, just fight
Yeah.
it and put in more work so we can look
Mm.
on the videos you send and them thing, then them thing, is me.
Yeah. And the thing is that, Joel, I agree with you that because the thing is that for me, so I have my 9 to 5 when we do, and that's extremely demanding, taxing on me. But I know
Yeah.
that I need to prepare for you guys as well. So at that
Mhm.
time, at them type of thing, they kind of make me push on. So I'll be up at like 1 o'clock in the morning preparing um stuff for you guys to send in the group. Um, I've been updating the syllabus as well, and that is taking a lot of my time. And also from because I in my head I'm saying I cannot be asking you guys to put in the work if me not putting the work for Uno as well.
Yeah.
So the video that I sent in the class in the group last week, I watched the video. I never really need to watch it, but me watch the video so I can say, okay, then I told you guys to do this, me I do it too. You get me?
Mhm.
So and I also think that how you could look at it as well is that whatever job you're doing now that is taxing on you and demanding a lot of you, but probably not even paying you based on what you need to do, this
Mhm.
opportunity would allow you to leave that job. So this is what I can say. I know somebody right now who is working remotely for an overseas company and um, is making on average, say, two, call it 1.5, probably 1 million to $1.5 million a month
A
in Jamaica.
month.
Yeah, in Jamaica,
Yeah.
right? Yes, because he's working remotely. So, so when the foreign exchange are kicking in, a different type of city. You get,
Yeah.
and he's a software engineer.
Mhm.
You get me? I try to say.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna tell you, sir.
that is the potential that is out there if you put in the work. You see me? And of course, there's the business side of it as well. Um, But if you put in the work, that's a possibility that you can attain, but you just have to put in the work. Yeah. So I just I tell you that for you that as a guiding course. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then man
And
just
more and I try to find the motivation, but I start think about it and for real.
yeah, isn't it? More and
So,
more them man they never go out, them just get up in them bed, sit there, so you have them bed there, so you have them office over there. So. And you just get up in the office, cool, and go back in bed.
mm,
Right? So
yeah.
that is just what is out there potentially if you put in the work properly. You get me? I say? But yeah, you are correct. I actually feel it is that sometimes we teach fast. Um, and as somebody posted in the group that we should have some more periodic assessment. So we really want to try to have those assessments to understand where persons are and how we can improve um, persons who are struggling, improve the engagement, ensure that persons understand um, and are benefiting from our things. So yeah, I agree with you. We need to improve that part there. All right. Damani. Mr. Arlene Damani, so you can't escape in a trap.
And,
Yeah.
so I mean, all right. So to be honest, see,
Mhm.
like now, like really, all of us, I can say for myself,
Mm.
really engaged
Mhm.
right now with what is being taught, and it's on every Saturday.
Mhm.
So for me, I think that because of course we know everybody have work month, 5 days or probably the whole 7 days of the week. We don't really know how much people how them things stay, how them
Mhm.
times people stay, and so on. So we really engage like every Saturday, but some
Mhm.
of the times probably if it's possible, like we could set up like a video time
Mhm.
where we could just revise and then get into like a next topic on the Saturday. you
Right.
know so it kind of it's like a refresher course rather
Mhm.
than say all right, say Saturday we'll have class and probably revise.
Mhm.
But let us see if we probably can set up a time before that,
Mhm.
so we'll have it, and then say the following day we'll have class, and we know, so we'll
Okay.
have in our mindsets to
Yeah.
say all right, we're at this point, so make we move on and move into the next topic, or just basically do something like an assessment on a topic we were talking about the day before.
Okay.
So
So you would prefer that. So you'd prefer like probably, well, maybe not in the week or people whatever, but even just all right. So we say all right. Every, for these 2 Saturdays, we'll be doing some topics, but this
mm,
third Saturday, pure review, just basically just going over everything that we've been taught and understanding where everybody is, and probably doing a little exam type situation, stuff like that, right?
yeah, because at the same time too, like all the way we know say like some of the time when work finish we just come home and probably just drop asleep
Yeah,
because
yeah,
totally mash you up. It
yeah,
all
man.
away
Yeah,
think about away.
yeah, we know
You know,
the chat, man. Yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
it so if like if we can come at if we can come at a compromise and meet to each of anyone our needs or our want in the class, I feel it can work out even better than how person's thinking it now.
Mm-hmm.
The part where the brother says about the teaching kind of fast, I kind of agree, but
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, I mean, don't bash what I just want to say that if when you get the chance, you can say something, and then of course either Andrea or Shay can respond to that and then just help you
Yeah,
from
man.
there.
Yeah, man. Just
That's that can work.
yeah, man. Link up. But I want to encourage you guys though. So I take the feedback. Come on. I agree that we could have more review classes, more assessment classes to understand where you guys are, where you need to be, and how we can assist in getting you there. So I
Yeah,
agree completely with that. I would also say that one of the things that I would encourage you guys to do as well is um, all right. Let me ask. Well, as you said, you don't have any time, but a lot of the resources that are in the in the three documents. So we have three documents now, or four documents in the folder
Yeah.
that outlines HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Um, so what I would encourage you guys to do as well is some of the issues that you have, document them. You know, you probably don't have the time to document all of it, but document them, because what that will allow us to do as well is when we are doing the review sessions, or the assessment sessions, you guys can specifically speak to an issue that you have, um, so that we can be more clear on where you are. So don't just come and say, you know, so I have an issue, but I don't really, I don't understand this or whatever. Say, okay, then I'm having a bug. There's this particular bug that happens, or I see when I put this tag here, or I create this variable here, or this is the line that is giving me problems. Because we know what that would do? That would indicate to us that you're actually thinking deeply about the problem that you're trying to solve in terms of the bug itself, debugging, right? So that is what I would also encourage you guys to do as well. But definitely, we need to have some more assessment. We need to slow down the speed at which we teach. Um, yeah, all right, cool. I take that.
Yeah, man. And
Anything else, Damani?
yeah, man. For
Mm.
add I go on the instructions are how to download the Visual Studio. Come and realize it really better based on what I have.
Yeah, man, a long time for abandon cool box, you know. You know, a long time I that job.
Like
God go with you.
yeah, I tell you, so it kind of probably that's why it kind of slow me down to me sort of struggle
Mhm. Mhm.
on certain things. But I realize a Visual Studio, man, it have
Yeah, man,
everything.
I eat chop, I eat, man, I eat.
You know,
Mhm.
they ask about bootstraps.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing as W3 schools? Come, I wonder if it kind of better than the W3 schools.
No, man. So well, so there, I think there is a section on Bootstrap and DoubleTree schools. So
Yeah.
Bootstrap is the framework for building mobile responsive applications. And they walk you through how to do that in terms of identifying the various elements of Bootstrap and
Mm,
showing how you can create the various elements. So as was communicated in the class or the session, um, I can create a button. This is how I create a button by attaching a button or a btn dash primary to a class attribute in the button element, right? And then it will give me access or apply all of the CSS design styles to that button to make it look pretty without me having to actually create a CSS folder and then, you know, referencing creating a button rule set and then,
okay.
yeah, you know what I mean? So that is what the Bootstrap website does. W3 schools, I think they have a section on Bootstrap as well that guides you as well.
Yeah.
But you can use both of them because W3 schools also has HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and some other stuff that are
Yeah.
also critical to our class and to you being a competent front-end developer and web developer. So yeah, both of them good.
The Visual Studio free. It's free for download. Like,
Yeah, man, that's easy, man. No, I don't think you have. Well, I think some code editors you pay for as well to get like premium access, but for what you want to do, you don't have to pay for it.
oh, but if anything, me I go to the crack version still.
No, man. You don't even do the cracks up there, one. Just go up on the website and download it.
All right.
Yeah, there's no need for crack because it's not a paid thing.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah, man.
That's it?
Yeah, man, Dre.
All right, cool. Jordan, you know, so we talk off the scene offline sometime, but tell me what's on your mind.
regarding what? I mean, to help the program.
Yeah, man, that man.
Oh, yeah, I think you need to emphasize that the class sessions are just a minor part. It's like a college thing where you have the lecture, but the hard work is in the tutorial and doing your homework. So you need to
Yeah,
emphasize the resources more. And you guys are available for any questions that I've seen. So I guess just bring that to the attention that yes, I can also talk to get any advice. Other than that, I like the program.
all right,
I like the
cool, cool.
program. But I do concur that sometimes it moves a little too fast for absolute beginner.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
only thing.
All right, cool, no problem. So I'll take that as well. Um, you know, these classes is really the classes are just, you know, like a tip you like tip your toe in the water, and then just emphasize using the resources, communicating more, understood, slowing down. All right, no problem, no problem. So do you guys have any more questions for me? Um, did you learn anything from the class? Give me some feedback on this class, because this is your first experience with me as a teacher. I'm normally behind the scenes, messaging you guys in the group, setting up for the classes. So tell me about your experience here with me for the first time, and how I can improve.
I think you are good. I think you are good. It was very technical, and I learned a lot. Learned a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good thing.
Joel, Damani.
Yeah, man, really appreciate your techniques and your teaching style. You
Right.
know, we know some teachers are not
I want to use this picture
yeah,
as
Hold on.
the
Joel, mute yourself there, because you can.
Oh,
well done.
Yeah.
yeah. So I rate the teaching and the techniques, the teaching style and the techniques that you have. You
Mhm.
know, like how Reto, you just go in depth with it, and I mean those type of those type of style that you have, a person, any sort of person would I really appreciate that. So you don't just go onto like to the surface.
Mhm.
You go in depth, so we get a proper understanding of
Mhm.
what it is that whatever this means,
Mhm.
or what's the use of it.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that. What I want to just ask before I mute myself
Mhm.
is the form you were submitting, of course, the credentials or the information. How
Mhm.
would you execute in, like, so if for instance you have first name and a last name, or then first name and email, how
Mhm.
would you execute it on a new page? Like if you submit it and then you say of course what you submitted in the field is on a new page, can that work?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I could tell you about it at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
And over the like I give me homework. So I can tell you about it at a high level, and then over the probably over the weekend or in the week I could sort it out in terms of code, implement it in code and send it to you and show you. But at a high level, um if you collect the data,
Yeah.
you have to create another HTML page, and you would essentially have to use JavaScript to represent that information that you collected from the first page on the second page. And it's a lot of the elements that I communicated to you guys today would be used for that. So on the second page, you probably have, say, you want to represent the information that you got in a paragraph or something like that. You would you would get the ID of that paragraph or the second page using JavaScript,
Mm-hmm.
and then the data that you collected from the input fields on the first page, you'd get that, and then represent it using the ID of the second page in the paragraph of the second page. And then you probably don't want to open the second page. So when the person clicks the button, submit, it then automatically open the second page
Yeah.
and present that data. So that's at a high level how you would do it. So it's basically just using the IDs and the other aspect, the value attributes and stuff like that from the first page,
Yeah.
um, and represent it on the second page. At a high level, that is how it's done. I will create that and show you over the in a week, and then I'll submit it in the group as well. But that's a nice little thing from work, man.
All right then,
You
bro.
can try it yourself to research it.
Yeah, man.
We're not
Because
you know,
mention it. Yeah, man.
yeah,
It's saying that you put it as an assignment or a homework.
yeah, man. I'll do that.
Yeah, me I
Mm-hmm.
work on it. Just to me. So I appreciate that.
Chop.
Yeah.
Joel, Joel, yeah, what I say about your experience with me first time.
as me there still, I like how you teach and thing, you see me?
Yeah,
I like the fact you always make sure say we are follow with what you say.
yeah.
That is crucial, you see me? obviously to make sure everybody are follow with where you say where you reach and all of them things, isn't it? So I like how you teach, man.
Alright.
And more while when Shay come back, you can jump into and share two few pointers and them things there too, you see me?
Yeah, chop.
Yeah, man. Cause me say I like the programming, you see me? Cause at
Yeah,
first I never really too. Cause me and man, me never coding. Me I said no man, coding, no sir. But
yeah,
when we start coming to classes and when we start talking,
mm-hmm.
realize if I really put my mind to it, me can do it. So yeah, as me say for me still, I just keep the pace
Yeah, man, no
with
problem.
minds of beginners in the class as well. You see me?
Let me tell you something. Because I know older persons, because people have this idea that coding are just for them call it like the thing you have to start from you like 12 and 8 and all that thing. No, chap. I know people who just start code at 50. You understand?
Mm.
Just start code at 50 and they are excelling at them thing. You can research it. You have people who start very late in terms of coding.
No, no, man, cause me did upon YouTube, I did watch, I don't remember when name, some the computer guy, cause
Mm.
he have
Oh
some
yeah,
did
yeah, yeah,
upon
yeah. Yeah,
coding
I
thing,
know who
yeah.
he is. He's a white guy with a beard and he made ball.
Yeah, some
Yeah,
of
I'm
the pretty
watching.
comments them. Some
Yeah,
I see people 28, 29, 30, at 40, and must say them start and within a year they was
yeah.
able to get into a company and make nice money
Yeah, man.
and
Yeah, so
all
yeah,
them
man.
something.
I just put in the work. You see me? That's
Yeah.
basically just put in the work and know say we are do the right thing and we are excel. You get me? So and I posted something in the group that I want to keep in mind. The time is your friend, impulse is your enemy. There will be times when you are putting in the work and it's something like nothing now go on.
Mm.
But it's a compound interest, an exponential growth that is
Yeah.
actually a nice thing. You get me? I say? But give me a minute, guys. Give me somebody at the front of the door. Give me.
Yeah. Jordan.
It's good.
Yeah.
Can you just jump on
Yeah, you
my
test them done?
Yeah.
You test them done?
What?
You test them
No.
done?
Well, my lad, no, I said this I got up on the something in online, so we can't just go use it or message me.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, yeah, yeah, leave Jordan? Okay. Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Yeah. So, right. So, as human beings, we believe that we think linearly. So we believe that we put in X amount of
I
effort
can't time me because
and we
I
need to
read
get
very
there.
fast,
So
really
meet
faster than
yourself
the
with that
average
first.
person. You care.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say still for the
Yeah.
program overall,
Yeah.
for everybody that's in the program,
Yeah.
because we realize like sometime half of the people in the day, then the next time,
Yeah.
the next half in the day, and
Yeah.
thing. But for the class to move ahead and everybody up on the same page, I think everybody has to try their best to attend the classes. So is it that they have work or what may be the case? You're not really sure.
Say, as a mute yourself, Jordan, I'm respond because the noise in the background. Right. So we've actually, myself and Shay, we've actually been talking about that because so I'm gonna be honest. He was a bit disappointed in the last, well, not the last two, but the the class before this one because not many persons were there. And one of the reasons is that remember we're blocking out 3 hours of essentially 3 hours of our time to come and give this to you guys for free. And one of the principles that we have is really high quality. So we want to give you guys you tech type of quality for free at least we know. So I remember that we are feed off of phone energy. So if only not follow the class, that kind of disappointing for us and kind of frustrating for us because we say we do this, I will provide high quality and no one is coming. So I really respect that you guys are here. When we just started, it was about like 20 odd people. Now it's like 4 people or 5 people now and again. You get me? So
Yeah, but
yeah,
overall, for that issue, I
yeah,
just think probably either you or Shay probably just need to send like a not a broadcast but a message in the group to let them know this, because I don't think them really, like if they don't come to class, I don't think they really think about it too hard. Them just say, okay, me not come to class today. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have to stress the importance of them
Yeah.
attending every single class,
Yeah.
as long as they
Yeah.
don't have work, or cause if you know them have work, we can't really do it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
No, I get it. No, I agree. And we'll be discussing some stuff around that. But I'm just saying that to say I have you guys here, so just to let you know that that was the experience a couple of Saturdays ago, because you were saying we're really, and I remember, guys, we have a lot of big ideas. Like, this is just the beginning of what we want to do, but this is the testing ground. We're experimenting with it to understand how we can scale this. You get me? So you guys are essentially a part of the pioneers in this. You get me? So, but we are going to be, making some changes and communicating in a different type of way with respect to that. But I take your advice, Joel. Uh, but yeah, that's basically it. Are there any other questions? Or are we good?
Our comment.
Mm-hmm.
I think personally, I don't know if it's a global, the full computer sessions make
Mm-hmm.
more sense than the separated sessions, because you can visually see exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah,
and
right.
you have
Oh,
that you can highlight it.
hold on. Explain what you mean by the computer sessions are better than the other sessions.
So
Mm-hmm.
Shay, when Shay does it, he teaches on the whiteboard and tries to explain the concepts. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time, especially for new beginners, they don't really understand what that means or how it fits into coding. So
Mm-hmm.
if you did it on the computer where they can see exactly what you mean, it use
Mm-hmm.
less time and it can cover more ground, because you
Okay.
understand it better when you see exactly what's going on.
Okay, understood, understood. So you prefer just bringing up the editors and just building the stuff and showing them each line than
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah, and
yeah,
can explain that.
necessarily just writing on a whiteboard or something like that. Understood.
Cause most of the time when I write on the whiteboard, some of
Mm-hmm.
the time I can't even see
Yeah, we know
exactly
it's
what I write.
the thing. Actually the marker. I realize the marker is not bright enough, so we need to get better markers. But I get you. I get you. Understood, guys. All right. So
Me I forgot, me I for leave now still, isn't it?
no
But
problem. No
yeah,
problem. Yeah. All right, guys. So thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate the commitment. I will be posting some stuff in the group. And we'll probably have another review session this Saturday. I need to confirm with Shay, because I would want to give you more assignments. But I will just stay tuned. I'll be posting some content in the group about this Saturday and what we have coming up. Well, yeah, thank you guys for coming out. Have a good day, and I'll see you next week.
All right, yeah, man.
Later.
Drop.